in. Now, with this, I normally like to link back with what we've learnt already. So let's think about the things we've learnt in chapter 1. Mateo, focus please. We've talked about exercise 1A was addition, but it's only with positive direction. So on the number line, you've learnt so far practicing to add numbers in that direction. Then you did subtraction. That's exercise 1A. 1B was then to do multiplication and division. And again, you're only working in positive numbers. Attila? Then yesterday, 1E, you learnt negative numbers. So you then learnt how to move between positive and negative. You don't have to copy this down. I'm just showing you the logic. And what we're now going to do is we're going to do multiplication division of both negative and positive. Now, there is a quick way where I can tell you to memorize. The problem is that if you memorize it, you don't understand why it works, and then you tend to make mistakes later on. And then students then say, when will I ever use this? But you use it when you're dealing with money and loaning and all that. So if you understand it better, then you'll see the logic to it. So my attempt today, this first half on your sheet, is to explain why the chart works. So one of the things you might have seen back in year 7 is double positives equals positive, double negative equals positive, positive negative equals negative, and negative positive equals negative. And then teachers tell you to memorize that, right? Here's the logic to it. When you learnt in primary school 3 times 4, 3 times 4, we know the answer is 12. Okay, so I know the answer is 12, and it's positive 12. But the logic to it is this. 3 times 4, multiplication was invented because we were too lazy to continue repeated addition. You guys learned addition in grade 1 and 2, and then from grade 1 and 2, some of you graduated to multiplication, and then most people stopped there. A lot of students at year 7 do not know their times tables, and that's because this was magical to them. See, the logic of this just means 3 groups of 4. What that actually means is you're saying this is one group of 4 plus another group of 4. You're right there, Mateo? Thank you. 4 plus 4 plus 4, that's what 3 groups of 4 means. So if you know how to add, you know your times tables as well. It's 4 plus 4 plus 4 ends up being 12. So when someone says to me, I don't know my times tables, that's a lie, because all of you can add. You can take your time to add. That means you can take your time to work out your multiplications, just whether you're resilient enough to do so. Okay? Now, let's do this one. 3 groups of negative 4, what does that mean? So on the number line, when you say 4 plus 4 plus 4, we understand that. We're saying this is one group of 4, plus another group of 4, plus another group of 4. That's why you end up at 12. And that's a positive line. But when you say 3 groups of negative 4, what this means is you're saying I've got, instead of going the positive direction, I'm saying I've got 3 groups of these negative 4. So you're going this way now. You're saying one group of negative 4 and another group of negative 4 and another group of negative 4. So you can see I've got 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. So looking at the number line, I've got 3 groups of negative 4. What's my answer? If you add them all together, negative 4 plus another negative 4 plus another negative 4, how much do you have? Negative 12. This is why your teachers taught you previously, they say positive with a positive gives you positive, because you do end up positive 4, positive 3 groups of positive 4 actually ends up with a positive 12. So positive 3 times positive 4 does give you positive 12. That's why they say plus plus gives you plus. Then if you think about this logic, positive 3 groups of negative 4, so plus times a negative, why they say plus times negative gives you a negative answer, because logically, you are going to get a negative answer. See that? Now we go to the next one. Negative 3 groups of 4. Hey, Mateo. Yeah. One of my rules is, while I'm speaking, 1, you're actively listening or you're taking notes. Okay, so one of the two. If you're not listening, then I expect you to take notes. But if you're not taking notes, I expect you listening. Thank you. Negative 3 groups of 4. Now, negative 3 groups of 4 may seem a bit confusing now, especially when you get to negative 3 groups of negative 4. What that actually means is you still have 4. It's 4 units. 4, 4, 4, right? The only difference now is when you say negative 3, what that actually means is that I've got 3 groups in the opposite direction. That's what it means. That negative 3 is the opposite direction. So instead of saying 4 groups in the positive direction, that's positive 4, I'm saying I've got negative, the opposite direction of the positive 4. The opposite direction of the positive 4. The opposite direction of the positive 4. So if you think about that, what you're actually doing is you're going negative 4, subtract 4, subtract 4. See that? So starting with this idea, you're saying subtract 4, subtract 4, subtract 4. This is why negative 3 groups of 4 actually ends up being negative 12. So you still have that 4. It's still a positive 4 like we had before. Okay, this one's a negative 4. This one's a group of negative 4. That's a group of negative 4. That's a group of negative 4. You see the plus was because it's a positive 3. Yeah, positive 3, so it's plus, 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 plus. But when you say negative 3, you're saying the opposite direction. And it's saying minus. So that's why it seems like negative times a positive ends up being a negative 12. And that's why we say negative times positive gives you a negative. So the logic for the final one, if you can now picture the pattern, what you're saying is now you're saying negative of the opposite direction of negative 4 minus the opposite operation of negative 4 minus the opposite operation of negative 4. You're saying do the opposite direction of negative 4. So instead of minusing 4, I'm doing now this other direction. And you can see now I'm going 4, 4, 4, 3 groups again. And this is why we say double negatives becomes positive 12. That's where your chart comes from. It's just about direction. So when you're in primary school, the direction you only learnt was positive direction. When you're in year 7, we introduced a new direction for negatives, and that's why it gets confusing with the double pluses. So the start is plus, that's primary school there. Then we started introducing these 3 is an introduction of year 7 concept. Okay, so that's where it's coming from. It's just still 3 groups of 4. They're all 3 groups. One group, one group, one group, that's 3. But it's just how you read it. This is like saying you're saying move correct to the direction you want. Positive 4, positive 4, positive 4. You go in that direction. Here, you're saying, well, there is no opposite directions. I'm just going left. Left 4, left 4, left 4. Here, it says opposite of positive 4. Opposite of right 4. Opposite of right 4. This is opposite of left 4. Opposite of left 4, opposite of left 4. That's why it ends up being positive 12. Okay, now if everything I just described, if that still doesn't make sense to you or you don't get the idea of the operation, you can do what you've learned back in year 7 and memorize the sign chart. The problem with memorizing the sign chart is that when you go to exercise 1F, which is the next week's lesson, you'll start to see these double signs, and that's where the confusion comes in. So students get really good at multiplication because it's easier than addition, and then they'll find that when they get to exercise 1F, mistake starts happening. So I like to explain it so you understand the logic to where it's coming from. Now, if you didn't understand the logic, it's okay. Let's do some examples, and this is what today's exercise is about. Here we go. Turn over to the next page. Here we go. So this is the next page. These are the kind of questions you're going to get. So you've got your chart. When the signs are the same, so double positive is positive. So I should do it bigger. Double positive is positive. Double negative is positive. And if the signs are different, then it's negative. Right? So all you have to do now, as long as you know your times tables, work out what 2 times 4 is. And 2 times 4 is what? Let's go with Fitzroy. 8, very good. So we write down the 8 value, and then now we work out the signs. That's positive 2. Groups of negative 4. Now remember what I showed you before. Positive and negative gives you an overall answer of negative. So your answer is negative 8. Okay, so this is exercise 1G. It is 1G. So it's just multiplication. Let's try the next one. Same thing. Work out the numbers first. 1 times 5. What is 1 groups of 5? Let's go, Jacob. Good. The answer is 5, but then we work out the signs. That's a negative 1. That's a positive 5. Looking at the signs, negative positive is negative. So the answer is -5. And like I said, 1G will feel very easy because that's how students do it. And then it's 1F that you get confused because you're memorizing this chart. Okay, let's do another one.
16.
Who said 16? Attila, yes. So again, 8 times 2 is 16. Hey, Matteo, 1, I've been warning you about talking while I'm talking, but 2, you just put down Attila when he's contributing to the class, whilst you have not been contributing, but yet you're distracting my class. So that's not on. That's a warning. I don't like that negative behavior in my class, and I always said, this classroom is about being positive and safe. You break one of those rules, that's an offensive to me. I find that an insult. You chose to be in my class, you liked when I encourage you and I'm positive with you, don't do that to someone else. Don't be negative to someone else. That's rude. It's disrespectful. And none of my students that I ever teach is disrespectful. And you're not that. You're better than that. Sorry, Attila, for that. All right, let's go on to this one. So -8 times -2. 8 times 2 is 16, but we have a negative number for 8 and a negative for 2. Double negatives, which we know from before, has to be a positive, so Attila was correct. It is positive 16. Who wants to have a go? Hands up for the last example. Sorry? Like, why it's positive? I'll show you, because I think you might have missed that bit there, so I'll explain it with you later. Okay? But for now, you follow this chart. When you multiply them, if you find that you've got a positive number with a positive, the result will be positive. If both the numbers are negative, they'll be positive. If one of them is different, they'll be negative. Only times. And that's why the confusion gets to when you do addition, subtraction. Yeah. All right, last one. Fitzroy? Very good. Perfect. 2 times 5 is 10. And this is positive, negative. So positive, negative gives you a negative answer. So yes, you're correct. The answer is -10. Can you see my layout? In your textbook, when you're doing your homework, question, method, answer, it's all vertical. I want you to stick to that vertical layout. Okay, so I don't want to see the horizontal layout. I know some of it's easy. I don't want you to write it like that. Okay, not equals, negative, something like that. You've got to start writing vertical entries. Okay? Was that easy? Pretty good? Multiplication's one way, division's the opposite, so it's exactly the same way. Let's do division now. Let's do division. Hamza. Thank you. Don't speak while I'm speaking. I'm still explaining. Here we go. Example 3. So when you're evaluating division now, 24 divided by -6. Same concept. If you know your times tables, then you know your division. You're essentially saying something times -6 will give you 24. So when you say 24 divided by -6, you're trying to figure out what would I multiply to -6 to give you 24. Now, forget about the signs for now. What times 6 gives you 24? What times 6 gives you 24? Yes, 4 times 6 gives you 24, but now we look at the sign. The result is a positive. This is a negative number, so what sign should this be with a negative to make it a positive? Negative. So your answer has to be a -4. So here, this is how many times you can -4 groups of -6 from 24. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to fix this part. That is, how many times can you, and I just want to write this word so that you know, when you're doing division, if you didn't realize, division is actually repeated subtraction. So multiplication is repeated addition. So when you say 3 times 4, you're doing 4 plus 4 plus 4, right? When you say 24 divided by 6, what you're saying is, how many times can I subtract 6 from 24? So I've got 24, take away 6. What's 24 take away 6? 18, and then 18 take away 6 again. 12 take away 6. 6 take away 6. 0. So how long did you have to take away to get back to 0? That's what division is. So to get back to 0, it was 4 groups of -6. That's the concept. Okay? So -4 groups of -6 to get positive 24. So here we go. I just want you to fill in the brackets here. You're going to write, that is -6, -6, -6, -6. Okay, because you've got -4, so opposite direction -6, opposite direction -6 4 times. All right, here we go. So when you deal with multiplication division in the same expression, you must work from, write this in, left to right. Very good. So you're moving from left to right. So in this example here, even if you have more terms, you're used to working with 2, but you can have 3 terms here. You always work from left to right. So doing from left to right, let's work -4 times 2. What's -4 times 2? Let's go with Charlie. -8. Very good. So then you work the next bit. It's -8 divided by -8. Now division is exactly the same as multiplication. Do the numbers first. 8 divided by 8 is? No, the answer is 1. Then you look at the signs. Yeah, double negatives is positive, so your answer is +1. Very good. Okay, so division's like multiplication. You work out the numbers first, and then you work out the signs afterwards. Now remember, that only works for multiplication division, exercise 1G. Don't combine that with 1F next week. Okay, that's the common mistake. All right, team. Next week, look at the planner, but I'm pretty sure it's 1F and 1H. This week is 1E, 1G. Yesterday was 1E, which you were doing, and then you started playing games. Today you're going to focus and work on exercise 1G. Here we go.